In this episode, you and I have an exclusive interview with Wragg and Elizabeth Model, the Iron Couple. Welcome to TriRiot, the show that explores the mysteries of why ordinary people push themselves to extraordinary limits. In this episode, I want to talk about motivation and introduce you to Wragg and Elizabeth Model, the Iron Couple. They've probably done more Ironman races than anybody in the world. First, motivation. Usually when I go to an Ironman race, actually whenever you go to an Ironman race, in fact not just Ironman races but a lot of different races, you get a wristband. This is your athlete wristband. It shows that you're an athlete. It allows you into transition. It gives you access to the athlete awards breakfast. It gives you admission to the welcome dinner, different things like that. And most people, when the race is done, snip, they cut it off. And me, I usually do cut it off, and I frame it with my bib and put it on my wall. But this time I decided to do something a little different. I decided to leave it on my wrist. It's been several weeks since my last race, and I'm leaving this wristband on for motivation. Every time I look at it, it reminds me that there's another race in the future. There's something else to look forward to, even though I have not yet signed up for another big race. It keeps me focused. It keeps my mind on the training. It keeps my mind on the goal. And it helps me get to the next step. That's why I wear this. I'm really not totally nuts. All right, now on to Wragg and Elizabeth Model, the Iron Couple. These two are a couple from Canada, and I love Canada. Canada's great, isn't it? In fact, if it weren't for the fact that I were born in the U.S., I'd probably be Canadian. Or something like that. Anyway, I ran into them at Ironman North Carolina, and I overheard, I didn't know who they were. I was working packet pickup, and I overheard Elizabeth talking about all the Ironman races she had done. And so I ran over to her. I dropped my job, what I was doing, and I ran over to her, and I said, "My gosh, how many races have you done?" And she told me, and she said, "Sure, I'll answer some questions for your video show. But the person that you really need to talk to," she said, "is this gentleman over here, my husband. He's done 212 Ironman races." My jaw hit the floor. In fact, my jaw is still on the floor at the convention center. The interview is in a large convention center hall. It's very, very noisy. You have to listen carefully, but if you do, you're going to catch some great stories. Here they are.
Excellent. How did you get into it? How did you start triathlon?
It was 1986. I was at the swim club, and a guy by the name of Bill Hallett bet me that I couldn't do all 5 Ironmans that year. In 1988, there were only 5 races. There was Hawaii, there was Japan, there was Penticton, there was Germany, and New Zealand. And so I did all 5, so I won the bet, and I've continued to.
And what was the wager on that bet?
I think it was $2. You know, we didn't bet. It was, so that was, and then that's. But prior to the middle '80s, there wasn't much going on in the sport.
Right. So you've seen a lot of growth.
There's a huge number of changes. We grew up without wetsuits. We grew up. I remember being in a swim. Water was 50 degrees, and they shortened the swim down, and we almost perished by the end. But we didn't have aero bars, didn't have power bars. We knew basically nothing about nutrition, and it was not scientific at all. When I see the times now that the kids are doing what we used to do, it's really paled by comparison. Yeah,
that's amazing. And Elizabeth, how did you start?
I started with a couple of girlfriends. We actually, I met them in the gym, and we did a marathon together. We all qualified for Boston. I was her pace bunny. And so then they said, "Oh, you're such an Ironman." and you've got to come up to Penticton and watch us. I said, well, I don't swim very well, and haven't been on a bike since I was 18 years old. I was 45 at the time. And so I went up to Penticton and I watched the swim start and I was totally hooked. So, and I really enjoy the training, and so it was just, I signed up for my second before I did my first Ironman. And so it was
That's
just
great. So just watching it really motivated you
yes,
to get into
it was just incredible.
Have you always had that sort of that endurance or like 5K mentality?
No.
No. It was just
I was a slug. My top weight when I graduated from the university was 280 pounds. I stopped weighing myself, so I lost a lot of weight and just started getting fit with it. And but as a child, you know, the way I grew up and whatnot, I was very active.
Yeah.
But didn't do any sports in boarding school or university.
Now, one thing that I have to mention for the video is that you've done every Ironman that there is, and now that you've done North Carolina, you've done them all.
We have done them all in the world. Now, there's about 12 that no longer exist. So in fact, we've done over, right now on the website, there's 40 Ironmans. We've actually done, I believe, 50 or 51 worldwide, because some of them are no longer in existence.
Like St. George.
St. George has gone down. The original Melbourne is no longer.
That's right.
Korea is no longer. Rote is no longer. Japan is no longer. Muskoka is no longer. There's a lot of them. Regensburg, Germany is no longer. So I think there's 12, 14. Lake Tahoe lasted 3 years, and I think it was too tough. And the hard races usually go down. People like easy races. So yeah, I think we've done in the low 50s different races worldwide, but on 6 continents.
Right.
Here's the kicker. We went to Antarctica 5 years ago. And so what we can say is we've done a marathon on all 7 continents. The Antarctic Marathon. Yeah.
Amazing.
With the penguins.
What keeps you going? Why do you? What has pushed you to just keep?
It's passion. It really is. There's a guy by the name of Louis Alvarez who's done 147. I've done 213. Well, you know what? He wants to be the king of the castle.
Yeah.
And you know, when you come to one-upmanship, I guess this is. I mean, yeah. But it's passion, and I think it's doing it together. The races that Elizabeth and I do together are just so much more fun. And our aha moment was in 2013. We crossed the finish line in Kona together. That was the aha moment. And it's that one moment that you look back on. It's that one hole-in-one that the golfer says, that's what keeps you coming back. Is that one moment in your career that you can look back on.
Wow.
It's that one hole-in-one that you get, and that was ours. That was Kona 2013. We crossed the line together. We still have that photo up in the kitchen.
And the one-upsmanship, really, I mean, that's just sort of a side bit, but there is that passion that
we're
you
friends.
Really,
it's a friendly rivalry.
Right.
You know?
So it's a real.
We're still good friends, but
Yeah.
you know what? We crossed the line yesterday, and we had the T-shirts on.
Yeah.
We had the T-shirts. All
That's
4 of us
wonderful.
have T-shirts.
I wish I'd have been there to see you live. I saw it on the video, that they had earlier.
It's good fun. It was special, yeah. It was good fun.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, talk about 2 people pushing themselves to extraordinary limits. John and Elizabeth are an amazing couple, and they were a lot of fun to talk to. I really enjoyed our visit. I was absolutely amazed by these two, how they had met at an Ironman race, and then their first date was at a marathon. I think it was the Vancouver Marathon. Just unbelievable. Wonderful, wonderful couple. I really enjoyed them. Oh, and there's a lot more information on them. I've posted links down in the YouTube comments section down below. There are some articles from Canadian TV news stories and some articles on the Ironman website. All right. Well, that's all we've got for today. I'm LG, reminding you to stay motivated, stay to the right, pass on the left, and keep on smiling. For TriRiot, I'm LG.
And you know what? When you come through that finish line over here on race day, up until the 9 o'clock hour, that'll be our finishing hour, I know one thing for sure that I'm going to do. I am going to call you an Iron Man.